I'm going to let you all know something. So when Brennan came to me and he's like, hey, I said, what's the theme for like the upcoming month? And he's like, focus and discipline. And I'm thinking to myself, that's great because I have none of either. But at the same time, somehow I managed to get a lot of stuff done on any given day. But I started to realize a couple of years back that discipline, that getting astonishing things done, that accomplishing, achieving at the highest level, it was not just an inside game and not just an outside game. It was a blended game. And that so many of us focus on one particular thing. And we end up realizing that we're doing one thing well, we're doing one thing poorly, but we're not getting where we want to go. We don't have the discipline to do it. We don't have the focus to do it. We keep wandering off. And we become really good starters and really terrible finishers. And I know nobody here, of course. I'm talking about myself. When you look at the people who've actually, the world views as having astonishing focus and astonishing discipline and who are able to accomplish incredible things, that there are some commonalities with them. Now, my mind kind of works in frameworks. So I started to really deconstruct a lot of my own experiences, the opportunity that I've had to sit down with hundreds of some of the most accomplished people from literally every domain of life, and then pour into the academic research on everything from goal setting to achievement, to focus, to attention, and things like that, and developed my own framework. And I call it success scaffolding. Now, that scaffolding, think of it as this is a superstructure that you build both around you in your environment, in your relationships, and it's also an infrastructure. It's a structure that you build in your mind, in your body, and they work together to allow you to accomplish astonishing things. They effectively install focus and discipline. And by doing that, they help the likelihood that you're actually going to show up and accomplish amazing things. They help that become your reality. So let's dive into it. We hear these words discipline, we hear the word grit out in the world a lot. I've had the opportunity to sit down in conversation with the primary researcher on grit, Angela Duckworth, a number of times over the years and really go deep into it. And we hear that, it's this thing that people either have or they don't have, similar to you either have focus or you have discipline or you don't have it. And what we started to realize is that's actually not entirely true at all. That a lot of this stuff is practicable, it's buildable, it's installable. So first one is picture, right? So we want to create a picture of the thing that we want to accomplish or do or the place we want to go. Large or small, it really doesn't matter. A lot of times we think about that thing we want to accomplish and we kind of keep it spinning in our minds, right? But we never memorialize it in any meaningful way. And the problem is when we never memorialize it, we don't entirely know what we're working towards. We don't know what it looks like, what it feels like, what it'll be like when we're there, what the fundamental qualities of it will be. So we never really truly understand what is the first step in because we're not clear exactly on what it is that we want to move towards. So one of the first things we want to do is to create a picture of this thing that we want to move towards or accomplish. So for me, if that's a book, so I literally just turned in the next book a couple of weeks ago, for me, that was getting really, really clear on what this book is going to be. What's the theme? What's the big idea? What's the promise? What are the core ideas and the supporting ideas? But I'm also somebody who's hyper visual. I don't know about you, and I'm a maker. I make ideas manifest. That's my sparketype or archetype or impulse for work that makes me come alive. So I needed to go a step further and really envision what does the physical object look like? And that actually helped me sit down and figure out how I'm going to start working on this thing. So when you create that picture in your mind, you want to do two things: be specific and be sensory. Again, this is all in the mind map. So be specific and be sensory. Be as clear and as granular and as specific as you can get. Behavioral psychologist at Stanford, BJ Fogg, calls this crispifying the idea, make it really crisp, right? Super clear. It's like you're taking a lens on a camera that's out of focus and turning it so everything comes into super clear focus and you have a lot of specificity in what you're doing. And then make it sensory. Give it sound, give it a visual, give it motion, give it scent if that's what you want. Make it tactile. What does it feel like? Right? So create this picture, make it as much as you can. If you literally have a camera and you have a sense, people do this all the time now. They create boards, whether you call them pin boards or vision boards or whatever it is, to actually get as detailed, as granular, as visual, and as sensory as you can. You want to create a picture which is detailed enough that it makes you start to feel things. And that becomes really important because your brain actually is a little bit like a GPS. Neuroscientist who works out of Harvard and Harvard Medical School professor Srini Pillay says that when you get super clear on this thing that you want to move towards, create, or achieve, that it becomes like this implanted GPS in your brain. Your neurocircuits actually start to work on the steps that will get you there without you even having any understanding of the fact that your brain is now working 24/7 on getting there. Notice I didn't start where most people start, right? Most people start with making a plan. We're going to get to that. But that is also one of the big stumbling points for so many people. First, you want to get clear on where it is you want to go. Now, before I move on to the second B, I want to answer a question that comes up very often, which is, what if you just don't know? What if you're not entirely clear? Now, I live and work in the world of business and entrepreneurship and startups. So I work with a lot of founders. And a lot of times when a founder is trying to start something, whether it's a private practice or a platform or business, they have some sense of what they wanted to do and the problem they wanted to solve, but they don't know the details yet. And they kind of know that that's going to unfold over time. So if the thing that you're thinking about accomplishing, if the thing that you want to harness focus and discipline towards is not really super easy to make specific and sensory at this moment in time, zoom the lens out just a touch. And what you want to do is think about, what are the essential qualities of that thing, right? So I know if I'm looking to launch a company, I kind of know the qualities. I know what culture I want, what people I want. I can get a lot more specific in the context of qualities. And while that may not be as effective, that gets me way past just having some sort of nebulous idea spinning in my head. And then be sure to memorialize this, right? Either write it out, like literally like take a page and write out what this picture is, take pictures, draw it, film videos, whatever you need to do to make it real to you. That's what we want to do. In the real world, confidence is very often unavailable at the moments where you have to make the biggest decisions, and there is no way to actually get it. What we started thinking about here is the fact that it's not about confidence in real life, nor do you want it to be about confidence. It's about the opportunity to be changed by a moment or an experience. Because the truth is, in the real world, the only way to be 100% confident about anything is if you've already done it, or if someone else has already done it. And at that point, confidence doesn't really matter, because when you're 100% confident that it will work and you will succeed, you have simultaneously reduced the stakes to a point where you won't care even if you succeed. It just doesn't matter anymore. So I'm going to propose to you that it's actually not about confidence. That's really not what we're going for here, right? I'm going to propose an alternative frame to you. And that's that it's the moments you're not confident, but find a way to do it anyway, that hold the greatest opportunity for growth. So rather than us trying to figure out, how can I get confident? How can I do the things that will make me feel 100% confident? How can I gather the facts or the skills of the information? The things that matter the most, the places where the stakes are the highest and the opportunity for growth and success and amazement and awe and connection and serendipity and impact and purpose and meaning, those experiences, those interactions, those moments, those endeavors and pursuits, guess what? You will never have anywhere close to 100% confidence in your own ability to pull it off, or in the world rallying to support it or you. But you got to find a way to act anyway, because Those are the windows. Those are the moments. Those are the seasons of our life when we don't know, but somehow we still act. And when we actually can find a way through, when we keep making decisions and taking actions and keep stepping forward and forward and forward, even when our head is spinning and the world is uncertain and we have very little confidence, we just don't know if it's going to work or not. When we find the ability to do that, and then we progress through it and we take baby steps towards this vision that we have, that is the most magical place to be. It's not even the achievement of the end state that really fuels us up and lights us up. It's the process. It's the process of growing. It's the process of putting yourself in a place where you have the opportunity to be changed by the experience. And if you are 100% confident that you can do it and that the universe will support it and there's no way to fail, it doesn't matter to you anymore. What you have effectively done is made yourself comfortable, but eliminated the opportunity to experience growth. I'm going to suggest something different here. Instead of pursuing confidence, what I'm going to suggest is that we take a different approach, that we cultivate unconfident action meta skills, that we actually intentionally put ourselves in a place on a regular basis where we go out into the world and we don't know how it's going to end, where there's no easy way to have confidence that this is going to work or we will be able to pull it off and still be okay there, because that is the fertile ground of life. So let's talk about some of these skills, okay? I call these the ABCs. The first one is awareness and ease. What I'm talking about here is the ability to see clearly and find peace in the space of groundlessness. So that's really kind of two things, but the practices are related. We want to know that we're looking out into the horizon and we can see as clearly and truthfully as possible, and also looking internally and understanding what is my internal state? How clear can I get about that? I want to become aware of the internal and external states, because that is one of the things that will allow me to make effective decisions rather than spinning all sorts of anxiety-based or doom-based projections, right? We want to become aware, and we want to cultivate the practices that will let us feel a sense of ease. The second one is bravery. And what I'm talking about when I talk about bravery is a willingness to act even when you don't know if it will work. And the third thing, right, this is the C here, is conviction. And when I'm talking about conviction, I'm talking about a deep knowing around why it matters and what the stakes are. So those are what I call the ABCs of cultivating action in the face of unconfidence. Let's start with conviction. So when I talk about conviction here, what I'm really talking about is to ask the why question 5 to 10 times, and then we're going to step away from it, ask it again, and journal. Now, why is this so important in the context of us doing things, knowing that no matter how much we try, there is no one moment where if the stakes are high and we haven't already done it before, that we will ever be 100% confident. So it can be these tiny little moments, or it could be launching something huge into the world or starting a new career. When we do that, we're taking a risk and we're going to stumble along the way. And the bigger it is, the more complex it is, the longer the time frame, the more likely it is that we are going to keep meeting barrier after barrier after barrier. When that happens, one of the things that allows us to continue to take steps and make decisions is understanding why we said yes to it in the first place. But very often, when we ask ourselves, well, why does this matter to me? We come up with a superficial answer at first. And then if we keep drilling down, though, but why does that answer matter to me? And then why does that answer matter to me? And then why does that answer matter to me? You know, so if I'm going to move from one place to an entirely different state or country, you know, I could say, well, I'm moving from New York to Colorado, for example. You know, like, and I would say, well, there's a lot of risk involved in that. I'm not confident in myself that I'll be able to handle the move and work effectively and be okay. And I don't, you know, but I still have to take some action. And I would say to myself, well, why would it matter to me to be there? Well, because, you know, I love the outdoors and they're snowboarding nearby. And okay, but why does that matter to me? Well, because there's something about the outdoors. And when I'm snowboarding on a mountain, that changes the way that I feel. Okay, and why does that matter to me? Well, because as you get deeper into life, very often, you become more attuned to the passage of time. And I am attuned to that. And I want to know that in whatever time I have on this planet, I'm doing things that allow me to feel connected and alive. And then you keep going like that 2 more times until you get to a place where you get the most authentic answer. And here's what you do then. Instead of writing it down saying, I'm done, you walk away, because the real juice happens after you do that. Because you take a pause, but your brain does not. Your subconscious brain keeps running the script, running the question over and over and over. You don't even realize it. And then 3 days later, you're walking down the street and your brain says, this is the real reason why. And when you get that, you write it down, you write about it, you reflect on it, you journal it, and you put it in print, not by typing it into a computer, but by literally writing it with your hands. It's because it changes the brain. It wires it differently when you memorialize things that way. So you write it down. And this is so important, because when you start to stumble, when you hit roadblocks, when things happen that keep you questioning, what happens is when you can revisit the deepest why, it gives you the sense of conviction. It says, oh, this is why this mattered to me. This is what the stakes are. And I care deeply about these stakes. So even though I don't know if I'm going to succeed, I'm not really confident in my ability to pull this off, and I don't know what's going to happen, I'm going to keep taking action because it really, really matters to me. The topic for today, and really for the month, advanced mindset and resilience. The way that I think about resilience when I think about it is the ability to move through moments and sometimes entire seasons of adversity, so that the experience of moving through it, the experience of interacting with it, the experience of dancing with it, is something where you can access the greatest amount of equanimity, of peace and ease during the experience. I was thinking about what's the strongest experience that I've had where I've had to be incredibly resilient. And I kind of was focusing on business. So we actually run 2 companies, and one of them is a media company. And we produce this flagship podcast called Good Life Project. We've been doing it for years. We actually started as a video show, filming on location with a crew and cameras. And we transitioned 2 years into that to become pure audio, just a podcast. And we air twice a week. So we have a very aggressive production schedule. I made a commitment very early on that we were not only going to create the most extraordinary production values that we could, but also the most intimate, the most real, the most open, honest, and revelatory conversations that we could do. We built a place to actually host this, where I controlled the entire environment. I would invite people in, and they would come in, and we would close the door behind them. And we'd sit in these 2 really comfy chairs with this super plush rug in a pretty intimate setting, and with headphones on so we could hear each other in our ears and we could see each other. We're looking at each other. That in-person format, for me, it was sacred. So we're 6 years into this format. We're known for hosting these intimate in-person things where you can literally hear the occasional siren coming through the studio, like the 4 layers of acoustic glass. And my belief, I have this deeply held belief that we cannot host the quality and the depth of conversation that I am comfortable producing if we have to do it remotely. And then all of a sudden, a year ago hits. We had a quick meeting with the team and said, okay, we can't do this anymore. We can't, this thing that we've held so sacred, our entire business, our pride, my ego, the brand was built around the extraordinary quality of the conversations and the production value of being in a studio, being up close with these really super high quality microphones and no echo and things like that. we had to make a decision because we were faced with mass disruption. And remember last year, everything kind of hit New York very early in the year. And New York just started to shut down everything. It was like the dominoes are falling in everything within a matter of days. The entire city is just shutting down. And we're thinking to ourselves, okay, so if we stick to this ethos, we're going to go on hiatus, or we're literally going to shut down the company and the community and the podcast. And we had other shows that we had started to work on developing as well. So the choice was, we didn't want this level of disruption. We didn't ask for it. We didn't see it coming. Nobody saw it coming. But here it is. This is adversity on the extreme level where it effectively had the potential to take out my entire business. But also, it made me kind of rethink, what are the assumptions? What are the assumptions that have gotten me to this place? And how can I change those assumptions? How can I respond to it? How can I see the possibility side of what's happening here and not just feel like I'm being pummeled all day, every day by the disruption, by the adversity? Because that's the heartbeat of resilience, is being able to see the other story in the face of adversity. So what we did was start to test, and we started to say, okay, so there's a certain amount of forgiveness in the world right now. We all know that we're doing the best that we can. Why don't we take this window of time? Let's experiment. How close can we get to what we were able to do in person in the studio? And what we found was we started testing all these different platforms, and we're like, sort of like the Goldilocks story, not quite, not quite, not quite. And then eventually we started to land on platforms for different things that were like, you know what? It's not the same as being in the studio, but it's good enough for now. So then we said, okay, how do we take this and try and make it even better? And we started to test a wide range of microphones that were shippable. And we started shipping microphones around to all of our guests. So if anybody didn't have the quality of recording equipment that we felt was important, we would literally buy it for them. And we still do that to this day. We realized that there was a lot that we could do in post-production. So we up-leveled our team. Our editor went into and trained to learn a lot more about post-production. We brought on a high-level sound engineer to fix all sorts of things. And that added a lot to the back end of what we're doing. But what we started to learn over time is that this assumption that I had about the only way that things are going to be okay is if we do it this way. When adversity dropped into my lap, when it sort of exploded into the world and into my world and my business, and I couldn't do it that way anymore. I literally, all the assumptions that I made and all the choices that were based on those assumptions were blown up. I could not keep making those choices. I can either shut it down and cave to adversity, or I can say, okay, so what is the possibility story here? How do we dance with this? How do we move through it? And what we start to realize is this now opens the entire universe to us. So now, if there's a guest in a different country, or if there's a guest across the country, or there's a guest in the Southern Hemisphere, we can now coordinate that. So all of a sudden, we're able to sit down with people who just never would have been able to be on the podcast and in conversation with me. What I discovered was, because so many people are actually doing it from their homes, that the home created its own sense of virtual intimacy or remote intimacy. They were intimate in their space. I was intimate in my space. And that intimacy, even if it was 1,000 miles apart, it bridged the chasm to create this sort of, like virtual ethereal container of safety and sanctity. And that really surprised me. And now, as we sort of like step into what I would consider, emerging our way slowly into a new season, now we're starting to actually think about, well, where do we go from here? When in fact it is safe to be back in a room, back in a studio together, are we going to automatically do that? And my honest answer right now, because we've been so convinced and so blown away and so surprised by dropping our assumptions, by simply kind of surrendering to the truth of the circumstance, and by actively seeking out the possibility story, and then trying to increase the volume of possibility as much as humanly possible, we've been really dramatically surprised because there are some really powerful benefits to not doing it. So not only do I feel like we have sort of bounced back to the place that we were before, but I think we've balanced forward to a certain extent to increased possibility. We may very well end up doing a hybrid model where we film and we record and we do the audio in studio, and then a whole bunch of other things we do remotely, because now we know how to do that. And because now people we want to speak to and people who want to speak to us, we can bring ourselves together in the virtual space in a way that either never would have happened face to face, or it would have taken months or years to pull the whole thing off. So I think the meta idea, when I think about adversity and resilience, it's sort of like the key for me is really, it's the notion of what I call the possibility story, right? So, and I call it the law of possibility. Is this a proven law? No, but it sounds kind of fun. For every disruption, there is an equal and opposite possibility. So our job in moments of adversity is to ask the question, what is the possibility story?
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember, you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.